What makes you think that this regime is going to fall when there's no organized political opposition in the country, no armed political opposition in the country, and 100,000, 200,000 armed people that are theological fanatics? They're not
Yeah.
likely to become they're not likely to become Western style Democrats on Thursday.
No, I think it's a very legitimate question. And the answer that I would give you is that I don't know, actually don't know. And I think that's really the concern with war, isn't it? It's always rolling the dice. You really never know what you're going to get on the other end of war. It could be a total disaster, or it could be a success, or it could be both. It could be disaster that leads to success. So I think what we would really need to see for this war to actually be a success is there's three components to regime change. You need the strikes on the regime bases, which is what we're getting with this war. You need the uprising of the people, and you need defection within the ranks. So in terms of, okay, we've got the war that's covering the strikes on the bases. In terms of uprising, this is why I think the US and Israel need to do a better job at incorporating Reza Pahlavi, the transitional leader, to help them with this regime change, because he is the person that has been shown to be the most effective in mobilizing the Iranian people, both within and outside the country. When he mobilized people in January, you saw millions of people coming out into the streets and chanting his name. And then he also mobilized the protests out here, which many of us saw, which we were seeing I think 1 million people or more coming out in every city. So once
you mean the Valentine's Day protests where Iranians were protesting all around, Iranian diaspora folks were protesting all around the world. A lot of people weren't aware of that because the mainstream media didn't show it as much. But if your algorithm is correct, you saw tens of thousands of people marching in London and Los Angeles and all around the world.
Correct, exactly.
And all those were at the call of Reza Pahlavi, who is the son of the deposed Shah, or the deposed king. And to your point, people who may not be following it, when those people came out by their millions, 40,000 were gunned down earlier this year. 40,000 is a tremendous number of people, horrific number of people. The one name they were chanting was for, Reza Pahlavi. So there is a figure, a Nelson Mandela-like figure. He just doesn't have an army. Nelson Mandela had an army. Umkhonto was his way, the spear of the nation. And he had a functional political party, the ANC, and he was a part of a tripartite alliance with the South African Communist Party and Kassachu, the labor movement. So Nelson Mandela, even though he was in prison, he had a government in waiting and a military. Reza Pahlavi is a uniting figure, but just doesn't have some of those attributes yet. But anyway, I just wanted people to know. Yeah. So
yeah, and that's why defecting from within the ranks is going to be just as important, because if you can't, create an army behind the transitional leader, you can weaken the army that we're up against, right? And so he's actually been shown to be very successful at convincing people within the IRGC to defect. And what we have to consider is the fact that right now the IRGC and everyone in its ranks is operating out of some type of incentive structure, whether it's power, whether it's money, and what this
just for my viewers who may not know, so the IRGC is like the armed, most hardcore armed component of the Islamic regime that is running Iran right now. So these are the tough guys, the people with the big guns and no respect for human life that have been terrorizing this country for decades now.
Correct. So within Iran's system, there's the supreme leader, and then there's an army that's only designed to protect the supreme leader, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guardian Corps. That's called the IRGC. So the supreme leader actually has his own army. And then you have a national army, which is called Artesh. So like we have an army that is designed to protect the people. So there's actually two forms of power structures here, and one army is just for the existence of protecting the supreme leader. So you can see just how sort of theocratic this style of governance is. So anyway, the whole point is that once you remove the incentive structures for the IRGC to remain in power and start to shift those incentive structures to taking part in or either offering immunity, because right now what's happening, these people are liable to be killed, or taking part in some type of new structure. Those are the ways that, and essentially it goes back to Reza Pahlavi being the person to draw up those conditions that can entice people to defect from those ranks, so that that government is so significantly weakened that when the people do rise up in the streets, they can overthrow this regime. And that's the sort of trifecta that we're going to need for regime change to actually be effective post-war.